Hello. Getting my phone set up so I can see comments and answer them. Hi, Kathy. Tell me how the volume is. I'm using a headset because I'm going to try actually sewing here in a few minutes. Hi, Glenna. Is the volume okay with my voice? Um, from the left coast of California, that's pretty cute. In Ottawa, Canada, and Glenna is in the south. We've got people represented everywhere. Okay, well, I'm just going to sew today. I thought that we would just have time to get to know each other a little bit, chat. I'm comfortable with Facebook Lives versus other types of streaming. And I just thought I'm just going to be here. My husband is out in the woods and hunting, and I thought, this would be a good time to just connect. I don't know about you, but I've been home alone an awful lot, even though I'm working from home. And sometimes it gets a little quiet around here. I guess that's probably what it's going to be like when I'm retired. Except my husband will probably be home a little more often. But so I'm just sewing these rectangles with some leftover white fleece and making like kitchen towels, napkins. They're more for kitchen use. And I'm gonna sew them together and then flip them around, and they're just going to be used for different types of just kitchen cleanup jobs. So I pre-cut the work. I'm going to adjust my camera just a little bit. Yeah, that may not have made any difference. So what are you guys working on? I'm working on Christmas presents a little bit. I'm also working on long arming for customers, but this is like the first time I've been sewing in quite some time. I thought with the paper towels possibly being a shortage and trying to be more environmentally conscious, I'm making these washable kitchen towels instead of using paper towels, and I've been making napkins too. So here in Michigan, it's cold again today. It's about 30, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and the temperature was dropping. We got a dusting of snow overnight. So we're at that time of year where it snows some days and then it warms up the next day, and we're going to go back and forth like that for we're going to go back and forth like that probably for a couple more weeks before we start really getting hammered with snow. I just remembered I was going to get I do have a quilt block cut out to sew. I'll have to get up and go get the book when the time comes. All right, so I gotta leave a little space so I can turn. You know what? I think I'm gonna put this to all white thread on my big cone of thread. Okay, so chatting it up. I don't use specific threads in my sewing machine. I was just using a navy blue Hobby Lobby thread. And for my sewing machine, I have my favorite is the inexpensive signature thread by the cone. You can get it on Amazon for like 20 bucks. It's cotton thread, but I am not fussy about whether it's cotton or polyester, to be honest. I had a question from somebody who can't find the live. It's actually one of my family members who will have to rejoin the group. So, anybody got anything that they're working on while we're together? There we go. I have to say, I'm using these spring-loaded scissors because I got to trim a lot of corners on some thicker fabric. And I actually love these. Um, People use these a lot for rag quilts, and they have that spring so they come back. But man, they're nice because there's not a lot of stress on your hands. And then something else I have right here by my sewing machine is a little bag for threads, a wooden press, so I don't have to get up and go iron every seam. You can just press them with the wood and stick that has a nice angle. Oh, yeah. So the best thing was I found this magnetic metal dish at Harbor Freight. It's a tool store, and my clover clips stay in there very nicely, as well as an extra foot because the bowl is magnetic. Chances of them spilling out. Oh, now another barrette in case it falls in my eyes. Look, stuff's not going anywhere. I'm constantly knocking things on the floor. So, tip of the day, buy your quilter friends this $4 magnetic dish from Harbor Freight. It's got a rubber on the back so it doesn't skid. I really like that. So the other thing I have by my sewing machine is if you're doing chain piecing, and this cuts the thread and it makes it to where you can't cut, it's supposed to not cut your fabric, which is always great when you're chain piecing so you don't have the risk. So I have all that by my sewing machine, and of course my favorite seam ripper, one out of about, probably 20 that I have is this is a really nice seam ripper. Most quilt shops have them. They're ergonomic and they're really pretty resin, nice end. So there we go. So I'm going to flip the the washable, reusable mm, towel that kitchen towel that I'm making. This is a good way to use up some of your stash on some of maybe things that you want to make for uh, gifts, but it also is great because maybe it's not your favorite fabric and it's put to good use and it's not going in a, you can actually like make a whole collection and have a matching kitchen if you're that kind of person. Super easy. I think the pattern I looked at, it was 10 inches by 15 inches. But I found these flannel squares in my stash, and so used I just used what I had on hand. I'm like, you know, they're for the kitchen. Uh, they could be whatever size you want them to be. Oh, I'm turning it around, and I just remembered I didn't cut the corners, but that's okay because I can do it right now before I get too far, just so that you get a little bit sharper corner. I do this all the time. I always forget to clip corners and all the curves. That's why I am not the best seamstress in the land. But I'm getting better because I'm doing a little bit more and more outside of quilting. So I'm just cutting those corners in a little bit so that you're not going to get a perfectly sharp corner, but it will at least help so the bulk isn't there because I'm going to top stitch the whole edge. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going through and popping each corner out. Now this is where having that little magnetic bowl next to the machine helps because I can put a little wonder clip in. See where my opening was. Then I'm going to top stitch it and then catch that down. So I'm going to close the seam and top stitch it all at one time. There we go. What kind of machines do people have out there? You can see I have a Janome. I really enjoy it. This is probably 7 years old and it still sews like brand new. One day I hope to have a Bernina. That's like my dream. Maybe that'll be my retirement gift from me to me when I retire from the workforce. Trying to keep up with comments and conversations on my cell phone. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing, is trying to see who all is here and if you have anything going on or if you're sewing, let me know what you're sewing and what kind of sewing machine you have. Oops, I went too far. Now I got back out and I pushed the wrong button, I think. love it when I make mistakes. Let me see the edge. So now the question that you might have is, it's if this is a pretty large size kitchen towel, how do you keep it from, when you wash, it's separating and getting all bunched up on itself? So on these rectangular shaped, I call, I guess, bar towels. And let me show you you can see I did a finishing top stitch. They're really a piece of cake. Great way to use up your fabric and great way to use up scraps. I'm gonna go along, okay, I had a bunch of squares left over, so I seamed them together on the back. I'm gonna sew about a ½ inch, ¼ inch off of each side of the seam, so it'll be tacked down in the middle. That way when these are washed, they won't bunch up upon themselves. And if it were like a little napkin and I was doing two-sided napkins, you could even put an X on your napkin to keep it from the front and the back separating. I do have a serger, and I have serged some napkins. And those are fun because, it's quick, easy. You don't have to. I did them two-sided just because I wanted to have them thick. But I kind of like these fancier. These are a little more fancy and they look a little neater. And to be honest, I have a love-hate relationship with my serger. And today, I didn't feel like dealing with my serger because it frustrates me because I can't keep it threaded. Threading it's a real bear. Now I know why my friend sold it at her yard sale. So there we go. One bar towel or kitchen towel. And I'm just going to do a couple more while we're here together. Is the microphone picking up the sewing machine a lot? I'm hoping that it's not. This, this is really crooked. Look at that. Look what I did. This is really off. So I'm going to flip it over and sew along the back so I can be sure to catch all the edges. This is why I don't sew clothes, right? Or line jackets. So, what do you have around your sewing machine? Oh, my battle station is set up here. I don't have my ironing board right here. I do have that in the next room. But for those who got here a little bit late, I'm just going to be using one of these wooden presses to try to open seams up when I do my quilt block here in a little bit. I have these spring-loaded scissors to trim, and you can see I got super crooked on this, so I'm going to trim the seam allowance down. I have my Harbor Freight magnetic bowl, which holds all my clips so they don't go all over the place. And I'm going to work on some of these kitchen towels, bar towels. You can look up a pattern online. They're called paperless paper towels. I thought that was kind of silly. Reusable towels, green towels, earth-friendly towels, environmentally friendly towels, things like that. And I think these make nice little gifts. The other part is, if you're like me, I have a lot of fabric in there that are just not my favorite stuff anymore. And you can take a fat quarter, will make two of these, and you can still have some scraps left for scrap projects. So now I'm going to turn it around and go from there. Ah, wait. I know, I heard you guys scream at me. Don't forget to cut the corners. Don't forget to trim the bulk of the corners. Thank you for reminding me. I did. I heard it through the Facebook Live. All right. Punch out all the corners. So I know a lot of people are busy working on holiday gifts and things like that. But I can tell you, I can't tell you exactly what it is yet, but after the first of the year, there's a couple of quilt-alongs that people will have opportunities to join that I'm going to do. And that's always something fun to do. There's a million quilt-alongs or sew-alongs, however you want to say it, after the first of the year. And I know Bonnie Hunter does hers now, so people can work on one throughout the holidays, especially this year. I know a couple of other people who are getting ready to start some sew-alongs or quilt-alongs right now. I think Quilting Jet Girl is doing one this month. I was very tempted, very, very tempted. Now this corner isn't as pulled out as I would like, so I'm living dangerously. I'm using my seam ripper to pop out the corner. Okay, so I'm going to finish sewing this, and then I'm going to sew the next thing that I've been working on, because it's pretty fun. Top stitching can be like nerve-wracking, can it? It's like I'm doing a white thread on a mostly black top, and you're like every wibble wobble, keeping the front, try to keep it rolled over so the back isn't peeking through. Okay. I've seen people upcycle like maybe terry cloth kitchen towels and then use that on the back instead of fabric just to give it a little more life on a towel that may be semi worn. Or maybe you can buy them at the dollar store, and some of those are not, the terry cloth isn't as high quality as some other places, but you could use that inexpensive cloth on your back and then jazz it up like this. Yeah, that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that before now? Well, when I use up the flannel, I may have to go to the dollar store. But unfortunately, I have a lot of flannel. I just keep finding it. I think the scraps just grow. I keep finding more and more fabric. There. Now I'm just going to do that little seam down the middle so they don't bunch up. And then I'm going to go to the next project that I'm working on. Thanks, Glenna. I'm glad the volume's pretty good. Especially when you're using a sewing machine while you're doing a live. I know that can be an overpowering noise. Now, the one thing I'm going to say, these are handmade and flannel is a little bit stretchy, right? So once in a while, I get a little pleat on the edge, but this is going to live its life not in a quilt show, but wiping up messes in the kitchen. So I'm okay with that. I'm also thinking about putting snaps on these on the end because if you look up the paperless paper towels, they snap a bunch end to end. And I have snaps. I just bought a ton last year for another project. You snap them together and then you can roll them. And you can put it on a paper towel holder. And then they're there. And they just unroll. And then you snap it off. Thing about the snaps, though, is I like the plastic snaps, but I'm sure they wear out. And they are not the easiest to just put on this kind of fabric. You have to punch a hole with the awl. I found I have to punch a hole and get them lined up, and you have to remember to have the two parts together. The two parts, the of a snap, you know. And if you're not careful, because once you put them on, snaps, these kind of snaps, you have a device that squish them. Once they're put together, they're put together. And it takes a lot of crying to get them back apart. So look at this. I am making these hats out of fleece. And there's two pieces. I have a black and a pink. And so you sew them right sides together along this outer edge first. This is a free pattern on Fabric Ninja, and I will try to remember to put a link. I have in my on my last podcast. If you go to the blog, you can find, but it's fabricninja.com, I believe. And these hoods have a point for a pixie hat. She has that kind of pattern, or a curly Q, like a little elf hat. This one I'm just making just a regular old hat with no fancy embellishments. It's 2 layers of fleece, and it is perfect for cold, windy northern Michigan winters. and snow blowing. And I'm just putting my clover clips on to instead of pinning because you know I am not a pinner. All right. The black is going to stay on the inside, so it's okay for me to use the white thread. I'm not going to top stitch the whole thing with the black on the outside. You will see the white thread though, because you can flip the brim of the hood. I'll show you that. So these are super fast to make. Cutting it out is probably what takes the longest, like anything else. Hi, Angel. So I'm working on some Christmas projects, some upcycling projects with the paperless paper towels or the more environmentally friendly paper towels. I'll be sewing, you know, fabric bar towels. I'll be sewing more of those in a few minutes. So I cut, well, I gotta cut the strings as I go along, otherwise they get in my way. Kind of that quilter thing, right? Gotta keep all the threads. So now the two halves are together. The black isn't showing up or I can't see it that well. But it's just like a hood on a hoodie. And then this is going to go around the neck and snap. You'll see. I got to put the right sides together. Yeah, Colleen, I'll put this up again. With the internet being as unstable as it is, and not everybody could come and sew this afternoon. I know a lot of people are working, but this, you may say, why did you take a staycation right before Thanksgiving? Well, number one, we all need to have our little break from work, right? And turn off the computer. I'm working from home mostly with my job, and I needed to have, I've not had a vacation day. I've had a couple sick days, but not like a week off since the pandemic began. And I was going to cancel this week's vacation, and I realized this would be my third vacation since the beginning of the year that I would have canceled. I couldn't do it. I'm like, I have Thursday and Friday off, but I thought I have so many vacation hours right now, and I know the second wave is on us, but I have my coworkers are doing a lovely job covering for my shifts today. I did work ahead by quite a bit to help, and I need the time off to just do this. Sit and sew and chat with our friends and not have any stress for the day, right? My biggest decision today was what to have for lunch so far. And then the next biggest decision will be what to make for dinner. I love days like that. And this will be, I don't know, probably I've made a lot of these hoods, and I don't have a lot of this fleece left. So I'm going to have to go to the internet and buy some more, or if we're going to go to Walmart, which is where I bought this, by the way. It was this is a really nice fleece. It was pre-cut, so I didn't have to wait in line or not be social distanced. I think it was a yard and a half and it's pretty wide. I think it might be 60 inches wide. It's a beautiful draping fleece. was $6 or $8, depending if you got a print or not. So here is the pink. So now I'm flipping it back around because you have to put right sides together and make sure you have it going the right way. And this is just like the towel. Same skill. I was like, what? It's the same skill. This time though, I'm matching the seams. I'm going to try to make it semi cool, people wearing it, the seams match. That makes it even nicer. Makes you seem like you know what you're doing a little bit more than my usual, which is I don't always know what I'm doing. I just jump in both feet into the deep end of the pool. But I was lucky. I had a crown put on a couple weeks ago, and I actually saw this on a free craft making fest. The person who wrote this pattern demonstrated how easy it was to make these hoods, and she did the elf, which was the hardest because it comes up and it has a curlicue on the top, and if mostly it's going to be babies probably who would wear those. Um, that was hard because that curlicue on the top is a tight, tight curl. Cut off my threads here. All right, Glenna's working on some swap quilts for her modern quilt guild. Oh gosh, you gotta have them in the mail by the 3rd. How many do you have to work on? I'm just hoping they're mini quilts. I'm gonna go to my cell phone, look at what Glenna's typing. Okay, how does this work? Does anyone know how the internet works? I don't get it. It's too fancy for me sometimes. Oh my goodness, I'm waiting for it to come up on the screen, and I missed out on a whole bunch of comments. I see Colleen asked if anyone was doing the Bonnie Hunter quilt. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to scroll down. So, yeah, Colleen, 100% home. I know she had to leave or her internet was not working real well. And Michigan is people work at home who have the ability to work from home, and essential jobs are working out in the public, but trying to minimize contact, of course. Yeah, so I see that Carl Dennis, who is my mom, Marcia, and she made it. Yay! I see that you signed on. Um, and yes, I see George Simmons is my friend, and yes, I'm using the plastic snaps. I'm afraid that the metal ones would be, oh, I just used my clips the wrong way. I put them on the wrong side, but that's okay. We'll make this will work. I just got to rob them. Need to do is go get the box of clips that I found my crafty room. I do use the plastic snaps. I can put them on with the squeezy press that comes with it. I bought it at Hobby Lobby, but I see Amazon has a really nice set with like a couple hundred different color plastic snaps with the same squeezy device, and I've heard good things about that. I'm afraid the metal snaps would, well, number one, burn you when you take them out of the iron, and out of the dryer. But the other thing about metal is that if you're going to use them a lot and you wash them snaps, because these have snaps on them too, these hoods, that the paint will peel off and then you'll have bare metal. And of course, they could rust, is my thought. Okay, so turning these little chin strap things are tricky. You gotta pivot with your needle down and go around the corner slow. And then I gotta take the clip out. And I'm gonna sew a quilt block after this, but I'll have to go get the, oh, I got off track there. And I dropped one of my clips. There we go. So sometimes get off track. I'm gonna take a couple of these stitches out and get back on track and clip it a little bit better. So Glenna uses a Janome memory craft. She bought right before she retired. Very cool. I may have to check that out because I've always dreamed of having a Bernina. But since I bought this Janome new home, I'll have to be honest, I really like it. It is a workhorse. I've sewn hundreds of hours on this in the last 7 years, and I've only taken it in for a service once or twice, and that was because it needed to be cleaned, and I tried to clean it, and I got dust jammed up under the feed dogs, and I couldn't get it unjammed, and I was too afraid to take my machine apart to try to take this back cover off. Um, One day when I get brave, I might take a class because I know there's a lady down in Houghton Lake, Michigan, who teaches classes on how to service your machine. But I haven't got that far in my life yet. Personally, the other part of cleaning and doing all the things is you got to have finger strength and dexterity, and I do not have a lot of that with my fingers. They have been kind of rebelling already in the cold weather. So Alice has got, under George, has some questions about getting plans and a routine at home since we're all at home more and being some people have been newly retired, so it's a transition. And I've had the same thing. I mean, I still have work, so I sit in my work chair for the most of the time in one room for work, and then I come to my upholstered chair in the non-work periods of the day, or I come here in this chair. So I still feel like I'm going to work because I'm getting up and going to a room that I hardly ever used before. And it's my work space is set up on a card table and a card table and a folding chair because I refuse to buy furniture for an office that will never use once unless this looks like it's going to be a long-term thing of me working from home. But why buy furniture if you probably can't get it anyway if you're never going to use it? We That room was an office once. It's now converted to being um, a music room. All of our music equipment's in there, which we don't use as much as we used to, sadly to say. Okay, so the tricky thing about fleece, you gotta leave a gap to turn. I only leave like an inch or so, is that it's stretchy and it gets off a little bit. So I'm gonna go around and make sure I cut all the edges. And before everybody yells at me through the internet, I'm going to clip the corners. Yes, I did make wrinkles. Colleen noticed that. I did have one or two. Yeah, the sewing machine is a nice, quiet sewing machine, Angel. She made a comment on that. The other part is I'm wearing a headset to try to keep the sound down a little bit. But that's why I like this machine a lot. Unlike the long arm, which is upstairs, so you get the echoing from being on the second floor, it's just a loud, powerful machine. And the bigger the sewing machine, the more power they have, the potential for more noise. But this is a nice one. That's the other reason why I don't like using my serger, because it's a Janome and it's really old and it is loud. It sounds like a freight train. So I'm clipping the inner corners that go around the chin strap. And I am trimming around the curve of the chin strap on the it's an outer curve so that it lays flatter when you turn the sew right side around. And outside right. I don't know. I don't know what the proper word for that would be. But these are super simple, super fun. Once I turn this, I'm going to just do a top stitch. And they're that simple. If I can do this, anybody can do this. So turning it around, running my thumb around, I'll run it around all of the seams to try to roll the front and back apart. Nice thing about fleece, even though it's a teeny bit stretchy, is that it tends to stick to itself. So if you have fleece upon fleece, they don't move as much as you might think. In fact, I think the flannel stretches more than some of this fleece. Oh, I'm wrestling it. This is the hardest part. It's getting the first part. So I agree with you, Glenna. I use Superior's Omni and So Fine in my long arm, and I love it. It's a polyester thread. I use cotton thread. I have a lot of cotton thread for piecing, but I use about whatever thread this machine will use. And it likes signature thread, which is in my cone, because I think I paid $20 for that cone, which is thousands and thousands and thousands of yards of thread on it. And that cone will last me about a year. Hi Sharon. She's working on 42 blocks for a swap, and she's almost got them done in the mail. I am proud of you, Sharon. I have not been on a block making path for a couple months. Part of it is just burned out on it, and in the winter I spend more time long arming. I don't know why. People bring me quilts more in the late summer and in the fall. So I long arm most of the fall and winter, and then when my long arming is all caught up, which tends to be in the spring and summer, then I piece. So now I'm just going along all these edges to make sure it's turned and trying to get the front and the back separated. So when I top stitch, all of these seams, it's kind of like finger pressing, right? So now I'm just going to top stitch. I'm going to do it pink side up all along this, and I'm going to put the hood inside, lining inside top. And this is my gap. I'm going to top stitch around, and that will catch it and finish it. And I'm going to put my trusty Clover Wonder Clip there. So when I top stitch, I really want to kind of roll that pink side up, Vicky, not the black. Want to roll the top over so the back isn't exposed from your front side. And I'm just trying to do about a 1/4 inch seam here. And Alice George is using a brother in Nova. I have seen your machine and it is pretty cool. Singer 201. So I think most all of us have different machines that have different machine companies represented. Oh yes. One of these days I'm thinking about buying a newer serger. I'm reading that Colleen has one. So I'm kind of skimming through all of the comments. And if I missed it, go ahead and say it again because there is a little bit of lag between what I'm seeing and what's live on Facebook. Yeah, these do look like yard trimmers, don't they? Like garden shears, but they're spring loaded, so it's real easy on your fingers. A lot of people use these for rag quilts. I'm using it for trimming all of this heavy fleece. And I want to keep my nice fabric scissors and my snips in good shape. Because you know, a good pair of scissors is like a sewing machine. They are hard to find, and once you find one you like, you want to keep it forever in tip-top shape. Besides, I don't have a scissor sharpening person that comes by very often. I know Alice and I have talked about that before because she's my neighbor, my neighbor in town. But we just don't have a lot of places to help with like scissor sharpening or even sewing machine repair. We have to drive quite a ways. So I want to try to be as self-contained and self-sustaining. Because right now, I called the sewing machine guy. Happens to be a man over in a town, and it is about 3 to 4 weeks on just servicing long arms and regular sewing machines. Sharina, I have seen that spray stick and I want to try it. I think that there is a spray adhesive out there for seaming that doesn't gum up, but I'm going to be honest, these sprays that I have used for machine quilting, I have to use the really, I can't remember the name of it, the more expensive one, but it could gum it up, and you want to make sure you let it dry for longer than you might think you need to, like a couple hours or overnight. If anybody else has experience with spray adhesives, jump in and let's give Sharina a couple of tips from your experience. The other reason I don't like using spray adhesives is it makes me wheeze. It's pretty potent stuff. It's pretty caustic on my lungs. That was about the last time I had a asthma attack, was using spray adhesives. So look at that. Now all I got to do is put the snaps on the chin. Okay, I'm going to take the headset off. I'm going to show you how this works. This thread cutter for chain piecing is from the Sunflower quilts.com, and they have their website right here, sunflower-quilts.com. Met these people at a quilt show, the nicest people, really, really nice. And I saw a question about my Harbor Freight is a tool company that my husband likes to go and look for one-time use tools. Magnet's pretty strong. They shifted a little bit, but you can put your clips and stuff in here. See, I shook it and I had one fall out, probably because it was sitting on top of the other ones. It's over here by the computer. You can put, I have my quilting, free motion quilting foot for my machine is in here so I don't lose it. All kinds of things. Um, this is a tool magnetic nut and bolt holder in their small section at Harbor Freight. I see someone asked about that. Um, so it says Pittsburgh Automotive on the inside, and of course the back is rubberized and magnetic, so you could sit it on top of your sewing machine. But yeah, it holds nuts and bolts for like when you're taking part, you know, engines and cars and lawnmowers and stuff apart. You don't want to lose all those little metal things. I have another one by my hand sewing chair, and it helps keep my needles. And I put the magnetic sew tights inside there, and then I get like a super magnet. So let me show you what this hood looks like. And I'll put a snap down here, and this will keep you nice and toasty warm. I want to go get well, I have the headset off. I'm gonna go get the pattern for the quilt block I'm going to use. So I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. So the next hood I'm going to make is plaid, and I've never matched plaids before, and so I may need to get some help from someone who has matched plaids. Alice, I'm not naming names, so I may have to ask you for some tips. So the quilt block that I'm going to sew, I have been working for 2 years, not super hard, on the Kinship Fusion Sampler. It's a 100 block quilt, and it is by Gnome Angel. You can buy it as a download. You can get this book. You can also get paper piecing templates, but I'll be honest. Thank you. That is it, the original thread cutter. Um, I don't need a lot of directions. I love this book because it's a master pattern, and I'm just going to show you. Here tells you the sizes you need to cut, and I know basics. It does have basics on how to sew half square triangles and stuff in the beginning of the book, but I like how I can just look at these super quick, and it will tell me what I need, and I can just put it together. But I've been quilting a long time, so I don't need step 1, step 2, step 3. Kind of Eleanor Burns writes books like that, and sometimes I need those kinds of books because it's a harder quilt block. So today I'm going to do block 45. What I like about this book is that these 100 quilt blocks are about, they're 8 by 8 or 4 by 8 rectangles. So you're going every other block is 8 by 8 square, and then the next one is a 4 by 8 rectangle. So what I plan on doing is I'm not making a queen. I'm going to do 50 as a twin and 50 as a twin for my granddaughters. And I'm just using scraps of what I have on hand, which is a lot of stuff. I have a lot of fabric. Where am I going to put this book so I don't? I might need it for reference. I only cut out one quilt block. Okay. So the first thing on this particular quilt is I have a whole bunch of this panel with a bunch of these squares with the cute little adorable little faces. And I'm going to use that along the side. So I'm going to put, the pattern shows yellow and a dark, yellow and a dark. So that's super easy. I'll go yellow and then French fries. Now I got to get my brain and gear right. 1/4 inch seam allowance. 1/4 inch seam allowance. And Sharon, I'll have to tell you that I've seen my seam ripper at my local quilt shop. It's gorgeous. It's perfectly balanced. I have no idea what company makes it or anything like that. It's just a beautiful resin, and I like that it's larger and it fits my arthritic fingers, and that is my favorite seam ripper. I have those little ones, that come with sewing machines. That's a good way for me to put a big hole in my finger. I really don't like those. I save them for like if I'm traveling, and if they get lost, I'm not going to be heartbroken. The hardest thing is making sure that these faces are all going up and not upside down. So I like to do quilts where I'm learning something a little different per each project. And this particular quilt lends itself to fussy cutting. Hence, I'm trying to fussy cut these out of a panel, which is kind of cheating, but there are lots of blocks where you could fussy cut larger prints in. This is the other part of this block. And I chose this polka dot because I thought it was super cool and it was a larger dot. But you could certainly spend your time on these larger areas for this particular quilt, fussy cutting, and I've seen that done, and it's so amazing. So I'm just new to fussy cutting. I've never really spent a lot of time doing it, and quite honestly, it never interested me before. But I really am trying to make the most out of the designs in the fabrics. So I'm pressing with my wooden press, and I like mine because it's simple. I think a guy made these for the quilt shop, and I like the angle on the point is perfect, and I don't have to get up and go use the iron because I just want to lightly press. And let's see if my 1/4 inch seams aren't too bad. It lines up pretty well. Look at that. Oh, I'm shocked myself. I haven't sewn a quilt block in a long time. And this actually came together with, I should have cut out another one. But what I'm going to do after this block is hand stitch. But I have to go get my needles because I'm about, well, was going to move to another chair, but I think I'm not going to. Well, I am off a little bit. But not too bad for not sewing a block in several months. And we'll just have to cut a little tiny sliver off of the red sushi. I'm going to guess that's a sushi at the bottom. And then I will press this, and I'll probably starch it too before I put it in the project box. Look at that. Super easy, super fun. Now what I'm finding the older I get, I like these quilts that are a little less complicated. I don't know why I started Dear Jane then, right? So this is fun. You can spend time quilting, practicing quilting in the larger spaces. You could practice your fussy cutting, which is I'm trying to not make every piece of this fussy cut, but trying to practice fussy cutting with this particular pattern. So it's the kinship. And I have 40, that's 45. So now I also keep a pencil by my sewing machine. So I can mark off that I did. Now the lady who did this pattern also did a tracker. And she usually does like a 100 block event, and it starts in July, and I got through 44 this year before I burnt out on it. And I'm just going to keep, so I'm getting close to the halfway point. That would be enough for one quilt. One quilt. So let me get some more of those blocks, and I'm going to go get my hand sewing needles. Okay. Oh, my cord. My cord, my kingdom for an untangled cord. So this is my other Harbor Freight. Whoa, my glasses. There. Nuts and bolt holder. It's got my snips, my favorite thimble that's got magnets, and my needles and my sew tights. We'll look at that a little bit later. So this is my 45 blocks. I have these little project. You can buy these project box. Probably was a scrapbooking supply. Who knows? But Hobby Lobby probably sells them, or any other craft store. I think it's 12 by 12, 14 by 14. So I keep the pattern in there. And look, I'm going to show you a couple of the simple blocks. But you can see how stretching my wings on fussy cutting, that one was fun. So the blocks are either 8 by 8 or they are 4 by 8. This one, I tried fussy cutting the top. You can't see it very well. It's an alligator here, and on the bottom it's a Peter Pan ship. Kind of kids quilts. I did do a couple with paper cutting and or paper piecing. I was like, this doesn't need to be paper pieced. But here's another one where I was practicing cutting the different patterns to be fussy cut. This one was fun. And I love these little dolls, little nesting dolls. This one was a exercise in ombers. It doesn't show up as well on the camera, but here's super cute. Look, it's broccoli and a snail and a pineapple. I maybe I really like this fabric. Maybe I'll have to keep it. I'm kidding. Ice cream and sprinkles. You probably have seen me post some of these before, but super fun, super fun. Trying to keep it very, very kid friendly. I'll show you two more. No, I'm going to show you three more because I love the little faces. And I thought these were cute. And here is avocado, radish, pizza, and a pig. They don't go together at all in food groups, but wouldn't it be fun for I Spy if you're playing that kind of game with a quilt with a small child? And ladybugs, and these were leftover strips from a panel that had a doll on it. And then I did something completely different, yellows and pinks with bees, bumblebees, and honeycomb. So that's a little bit of my show and tell of where I'm at. And it's fun for me. I haven't looked at these blocks that much quite some time. And I'm going to put this on top because it needs to be squared up and starched. So I'm going to do some hand sewing for a few more minutes. And then I'm going to go through the comments here and see what I've missed. Doesn't look like I've missed too many. There is a huge lag on my computer where the camera is. Alice, don't iron your headset cord. Hi, Sherry. Yes, that would be dangerous, wouldn't it? So I have had disastrous results binding quilts by hand using a very thin thread. This particular one's 100% polyester. It probably would hold. It's a Gutermann, but I've had them shred after use. I'm going to move my sewing machine over a little bit. Had them shred on me. So I have gone back to the good old, I love this YLI quilting thread. This has lasted me a very long time. So it might tell you how old the spool is, and it's still fantastic. It's a little bit heavier, but when I use a hand quilting thread on my binding, it doesn't come apart. Unlike some of the other um, thinner threads and more boutique threads, they just shredded after a year or so of washing. I like this bone, BOHN thimble. It's silicone on the bottom with a metal magnetic too, because it's magnetic in my little Harbor Freight magnetic bowl that you can get. The best $5 I've spent for quilting, and I use that particular thimble. I did a job for a quilt shop and they paid me in product, and I got this Tula Pink snips. Oh my goodness. I love Tula Pink stuff, and this oil slick color is pretty freaking cool. I was going to say badass. Oop, I did say badass. So I keep all my stuff in here. I have needles that I use for burying threads, which are the open eye or self-threading tulip threads. Of course, this is for my serger. It's a double, has two eyes for burying threads. Looking for my gold eye needles. And I have some little needles in here for when I'm doing English paper piecing too. And they stay nice and in a couple of pins. And I usually just put one clip on my binding because why put that many on there and get it in your way? So, what the hardest part of this is threading. It's threading your needle, right? I think I have enough light. So here's my part of my. I thought I had started this. I did down here. This is my. What way is it? Bookcase quilt that I made this summer in our summer quilt along. And I want to show you. My favorite part is the border stitching, and the piecing part is I really like those little plants. Can you see that? I used a gray thread for quilting, which I wasn't sure, but it makes the stitching stand out in the quilting, but it isn't overpowering because the quilt is so light. So, thanks. Those blocks are pretty cute, and I'm hoping that by the time I get the quilt done, that the granddaughters haven't outgrown that phase of liking cute things. I need to get my I need to get my blocks made so I can my older granddaughters they need a new quilt. I just made the younger granddaughter a Peter Pan quilt. You might remember that one, and I have some scraps in that other bin. Okay. What I like about this YLI fabric is I think they must or fabric thread they must condition it because it doesn't shred and it pops right in. All right, how do you tie a knot, right? Well, I can't do the twist and pull knot in my fingers anymore. It hurts. So I bring the thread over parallel across the top of my needle and do about 3 or 4 twists, pinch it, and pull it through. Has a little tail. Can you see that? Don't do it too many times with this heavy quilting thread because it will be thick and it'll tear a hole in your fabric. So here we go. So I put the needle down a little ways off of where I want the first stitch to be, probably a ½ inch away, and then I pop it gently, pop it through that backing. Just trying to get, oh, and then I pulled it through. See, that's what happens when you pull it too hard. Try it again. I want to get it down in the batting, but not through the other side. There we go. That one just popped in. I just do like tiny little whip stitching. Usually do a little anchoring stitch when you first start where you go around the needle. You can't see it. Sorry about that, but I'm not a fancy camera yet. And then I just kind of go along and obsessive about checking the front to make sure that I'm not punching this needle too deep. So when I get close to the first clip, I'm going to live dangerously and have two clips on here. I normally only have one, but let's try it with two. So, Colleen uses regular sewing cotton thread that matches to closely match the binding and backing. Yes, and that you can buy a lot of hand quilting threads in many colors. And since this yellow has so much white in it, you really can't see too much. Now, sometimes if it's a quilt that's mine and I don't have much, I don't really care if you can see my stitches a little bit. I'll just use this thread because this is right now is the only hand quilting thread that I have. And the light right now isn't too bad, but when I'm in this time of year, you can tell it's already starting to get dark and it's at 2:53. I have to get my task lighting. I'm going to try to put my stitches. Mm, oops, sorry, I bumped the microphone. They're probably about a 1/4 inch apart. Since this is going to be mostly a wall hanging, I'm not going to get too crazy with how tight I'm going to make these. But I don't want to go a 1/2 inch because then you get gaps in the binding. The ladder stitch. Yep, I do that usually at the beginning and the end of each thread. I think it's the ladder stitch that I use too. And I'm going to be um, honest. I, I think that some people I used to get really hung up by the people who told me there was only one way to do a stitch to make it invisible, and that was like coming up and going back down in the hole you just made and taking tiny little flea bites, which is kind of, I mean, I'm not taking big ones on here. But it used to stop me from finishing these bindings, and I certainly couldn't get a machine look the way I like. I'm terrible. I've tried a couple times and I've not liked the look of my machine binding at all. So I'm just going to I like this is about this in my English paper piecing is about the only hand stitching I do these days. I keep wanting to get my embroidery out and it just takes me so dreadfully long. Thanks, I like the yellow a lot too, Nan. It's not something I normally pick, but I thought that the yellow I have actually in a mix this is a yellow flannel went really well with this vintage looking Swiss dot is in this. And then there was lots of yellows and bright cherry colors. And so if you remember right, this is my pandemic bookshelf quilt. It has all the things that remind me of what I've been doing during the pandemic. You know, if you want to hear the little story on this quilt, I will tell it to you. So I wanted to use up a bunch of the scraps. And a lot of the scraps in this were used in when I made masks before we could get PPE at work. So a lot of these are leftover scraps from mask making, as well as scraps from a friend of mine who left me some fabric. And I wanted it to be sunny and happy because that's what I focused on and I continue to focus on the happy things. There's lots of things in here that represent me, which is my new plant hobby. I bought way too many plants at Lowe's this spring and summer. I would go to Lowe's and look at the indoor house plant clearance rack, and if it was $1 and looked three-quarters dead, I decided that for $1 I could take a chance, and and I did buy them. And lo and behold, all of them have, all of them but one have made it. Now, I bought a Lucky Bamboo, and it was almost dead, but it's got mealybugs in it, and I've kind of got it in quarantine, and I can't get rid of the mealybugs. I've put alcohol on them. I have washed it in dish soap, Dawn dish soap. I've put neem oil on it. So if you have any mealybug remedies, please let me know, because if I can't get rid of them, this plant may have to go, because I don't want all of my plants in my house infested with them. But this quilt has a lot of things on it that are also representative of me in Michigan. So there's one of my houseplants. I do enjoy books, but I listen to audiobooks more than anything else. My favorite is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is Hobbit on the back. Where's my Petoskey stone fabric? Petoskey stones are fossils that you can find only in certain parts of Michigan. And so, right here it is. It's a fossil. I have several of these in my rock collection. I like to rock hound, and I kind of rediscovered rock hounding because you could go outside when we're in lockdown if you're socially distanced, and rock hounds were socially distancing, and we found lots of Petoskey stones. I found fossils. My holy grail of a rock to find is a agate. I have some agates, but I want to find one in this recent times. Some of the fabric reminded me of the Northern Lights, which I haven't seen in person in a couple years. And some of these things reminded me of the night sky, some of the book colors, because I like to watch the sky. And I looked at the comets that came this summer and meteor showers. And we usually go out in the woods. When we're not in a pandemic, we would go to the Dark Sky Park up by the bridge. They have no light pollution, and it's on Lake Michigan. It's gorgeous, but it's so popular you can't hardly get there, and you have to walk to the beach in the dark. So just saying, it's you need to have a red flashlight. I almost fell the last time because I couldn't see. Oh gosh. So that's the story of this quilt. Keeps, oh, my battery on my computer has about 10 more minutes. So we are going to have about 10 minutes on this before I have to go. So, yes, I did find a pudding stone, a very small one over on Lake Huron. I found one, it was small, it was about the size of this. They're the ones we find around here that I think are the prettiest are white with different stones inside. You know, it's a conglomerate stone with usually red, and I think they're carnelian or something, in quartz and other types of rocks in it. But yep, I have found a pudding stone. They, my neighbors, all love pudding stones, and they have boulders in their yard, and um, they're so big they have them outside in their yard because they're too heavy to lift. I think they all had cranes to bring them in, and the one guy is a roofer, so he does have a lot of equipment and people. So yes, I have found pudding stone, and so yeah, I like rocks. So I'm kind of reading through some of the comments, and Nancy said you can never have too many plants. Well, I agree, except I'm running out of room, and I bought a seasonal affective disorder lamp because I thought it'd be nice for me, but I'm also putting it on my plants because I'm thinking it will help them make it. Because we've had a lot of dark days already. And oh, you found a pudding stone this year about the size of a nickel, Nancy. Awesome. And there are lots of books on YouTube, and there are lots of audio books for free on lots of different sites, including our library. So I love audiobooks because I usually have them on when I'm doing something like handwork like this, because, or a football game, because I can watch the football because there's 20,000 instant replays, so you can do some stitching and you never really miss anything. Now, here's the tricky part. There's a gap, a teeny gap in my corner. I need to catch that in here. So I'm going down and I'm trying to come up and take a flea bite on this top. I didn't get the corners machine stitched together, and there's a teeny little gap. Of course, I'm running out of thread. Isn't that how it goes? Let's see if I can do it without my bright light. Yes, I did it. Small victories. Okay, let me show you what I did before I lose you. In this corner, there was a gap, and you can see the thread came up where I stitched it to try to catch it and bring it together. Now with this white thread, you can barely see it. And that corner isn't going to come apart if I ever decide to machine wash this, which I'll be honest, I don't wash my quilts that much by machine. I do occasionally, but they're not designed to be washed a lot. You fluff them up in the dryer, get the dust out of them, but the more you wash them, the more the risk of them getting damaged. So, since my computer is only got a few more minutes, we'll stop the hand stitching there. And let's see, does anybody have any other questions or comments? If I have time to do a little Facebook Live on Wednesday afternoon, I will try, and I will announce it Wednesday morning. Being my vacation, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing every day. And we are not, it was just the two of us for Thanksgiving because we're all social distancing, which is cool that everyone is able to have their own Thanksgiving dinner, but it also means it's different. And so I bought a store-bought pie. I'm not going to eat any of it, probably, or maybe a tiny sliver. But we got turkey breast and all of that kind of stuff. So my menu for Thanksgiving is husband bought stuff to make homemade dressing, turkey breast. We bought instant, not instant, but pre-made mashed potatoes because I'm lazy, and green beans, probably with bacon in them. And it's just be a small affair between him and I. My husband will probably go hunting at some point. But I want to watch the Lions game. It's tradition, even though they're playing terrible, and they will probably lose and be embarrassing. But it's Turkey Day. It's the Turkey Day tradition to watch the Lions lose. Um, so I'll be watching football and probably hand sewing and doing some crocheting. And this has been a lot of fun. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. I picked up a few tips. Remember, I'm going to say for those who came later, I was telling everyone the best $5 I ever spent were these Harbor Freight nut and bolt magnetic bowls. Um, the other thing I was an inexpensive item was this sunflower quilts. I can't remember now what it's called. Is anyway, it cuts threads for when you have chain piecing. And someone put a link in the description or in the comments. I'm using quilting thread. I know I am totally not following the quilt police rules of using heavy hand quilting thread for my bindings, but it works for me and it's what I like, as well as my must-have tools, my fabulous green, emerald green ergonomic seam ripper, and my wooden press. So those are some of the things we opened the Facebook Live talking about. I enjoy hearing what you find is something that are the best things you ever bought for quilting, sewing, that kind of thing. And I am glad that I had a chance to take my time off this week and spend some time with you guys. I hope that everybody has a most wonderful day, and if things go as planned, I'm hoping to do another Facebook Live Wednesday afternoon so that I can sew along while my husband is out hunting with my friends and my family, because my friends and family are all here, as well as my Facebook friends. And I have met many of you, and I consider you my friends. So we can have some time to keep each other company while we get ready to spend a socially distanced Thanksgiving. So I want to say thanks, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And if all goes well, I'll see you again Wednesday afternoon, probably about the same time, right around 1:30. And if the wheels fall off the day or if there's a problem, you'll know. But if I'm going to do it, I will make an announcement Wednesday morning. So before my computer finally kicks the bucket here, you guys have a great day.